It's Friday, the 15th of May, and once again I find myself in the beautiful woodlands above the River Derwent near Ambergate, which is probably about 2 miles north of Belper in Derbyshire. We have been here before. It was featured in the video entitled Cryche Almighty. Last night, which was the 13th of May, I had the great pleasure of recording a podcast on the Sheep Farm platform with the two hosts, Dom and Christian, who, both like me, and curiously enough, went to the same school in Huddersfield. Not at the same time, they're both a bit younger than me. I think Dom started the year I left, which was 1981. 45 fucking years ago. As incredible as it may seem. Anyway, it's the third time I've been on, and I would like to thank them both for hosting me. We always have a great time. In many ways, it's like meeting up with a couple of old mates. The accents are familiar, and there's an easiness about it, characterised by a lot of humour. And I always work on the premise that if I'm enjoying myself, then other people will be enjoying it as well. And so it proved to be the case. This week's roadcast is a little bit different insofar as I've decided this week to have a go at doing a news roundup. It all sounds a bit curious, and by the end of it, I did feel as though I'd been wading through a morass of black treacle. It left me feeling a little bit sticky and a little bit grimy. But we'll see. As always, I do appreciate the feedback. For that reason, if you like this week's content, then please give me a thumbs up, please like and share and all that jazz, and let me know if you think it's something worthwhile. What I decided to do was to go through my Twitter feed and look at some of the comments I'd written and replies I'd made to various items that were flowing through the stream of news that is X. But then again, you could say, I don't know if it is a stream, maybe it is more like a swamp. Glutinous, peaty, black swamp of cunt waffle, egregious nonsense and various reported happenings in clown world. And let's make no mistake about it, is clown world. The biggest clown this week, I would say, was King Charles, who, if you saw it, was an actor in the usual pomp and circumstance involving the King's speech. And Parliament is an absolute puppet show. There's no doubt about it. And as we spoke about last night, people need to get the noggins working and understand that it's all scripted and that none of the actors are actually free-thinking, critically minded and independent individuals. They're not. They're all bought and paid for. And who are they bought and paid for? Well, invariably, whichever side of the house they might sit, they have been bought and paid for by the Jewish / Talmudist / Israeli lobbyists, the Friends of Israel. Whether they're on the red side, the blue side, the green side, the brown side, they've all been generously in receipt of funds from the Friends of Israel, from these rich Zionists, Jewish financiers who are lining their pockets. So it goes, so it goes, so it goes. Anyway, with a bit of reluctance, let's just take a look at what's been going on with Sir Keir Starmer. You won't have noticed it in the news this week, but the trial of the 3 Ukrainian rent boys continues in the Old Bailey. It's an astonishing state of affairs when you realise that there's actually virtually no coverage of it in the mainstream media, and that the only coverage that has taken place has been that of 1 or 2 channels of the independent media who have been there watching and taking note of the events. The whole thing is riddled with ridiculous claims. If you haven't heard of it, Sir Keir Starmer's former properties and his former vehicle got firebombed about a year ago. Quite how and why it's taken a year to bring it to court, I don't know. But this is a farce, a most ridiculous state of affairs as far as the courts are concerned. It's been decided somehow that neither the defence nor the prosecution are going to go into the issue as to why this happened. What was the motivation of the 3 Ukrainian rent boys to firebomb, to attack Circuit's property? And of course, because there is no explanation, people are going to speculate. Were they disgruntled rent boys who Circuit had simply not paid what they were due? I don't know. It's all very, very strange. In other news, as I say, I did have the great pleasure of noting that Mariana Springs vehicle, namely the Verify unit of the BBC, has been discontinued. It's been ditched. It's collapsed under the weight of its own hubris. Very difficult to keep something going like that. A unit that is purporting to be the arbiter of truth when it's actually a mere aegis of the BBC, which is the world's greatest ever propaganda outfit, which has been pumping out bullshit, lies and distortions for many a long year. Many a long year. You know, the claim that they were going to expose disinformation, that they were going to troll the conspiracy theorists, it collapsed because they simply couldn't sustain it. When the BBC itself is engaging in conspiracy theorists and the disinformation that the Verify unit was purportedly seeking to expose. It's like, well, look at this story here. Let's consider how this is fake. What's just over the shoulder? The BBC is putting together a fake piece of news or blatant propaganda. Where dear old Mariana Spring goes from this point, I'm not sure, to be perfectly frank. I couldn't care less, but it is symptomatic of the times being those of the apocalypse, where everything is revealed. As I said last week, if you're a wrong 'un and you've got things to hide, you're not going to be able to do it. Everything's being exposed. The fetid contents of everyone's closet are spilling out. And I think it's unprecedented. I've never known anything like it. And that's why, of course, it is so difficult right now to keep up with what is called the news. The news, in and of itself, is something that's not really been around for that long. Perhaps 300 years. I think it was in the 1700s when the first newspaper or daily newspaper was established, and that was in London. And of course, with a decision to publish the news comes the decision about what is the news, what to include and what to leave out. And immediately when you're faced with having to make decisions like that, you are faced with having to edit out certain aspects of stories that may not be in line with the narrative that you're wishing to convey. You know, and is it something really of consequence to us if it's happening, say, 4,000 miles away? I'm reading a very weighty volume at the moment. It's called The Controversy of Zion. And in there, it makes the point that Zionism really took off in the 19th century. What characterised it was a number of individuals taking it on as a cause. Well, in this case, we'll just focus on native English people taking on Zionism as a cause. And I was thinking, well, it's not unlike what's going on these days, where people seem more interested in what's going on abroad than they do in what is happening around them. And of course, it's from this that we have expressions like charity begins at home. Anyway, the point was that in the 1800s, people were picking up the baton, as it were, of Zionism. And they were running with it, and they were extolling it as something that was expedient and necessary, and a great cause to get behind. And Douglas Reed, who wrote the book, made what I thought was an excellent point, and that it could be likened to what happened when the English Parliament was seeking to abolish slavery, specifically the enslavement of the African or Negro people. So some people would take this on board and say, well, isn't it a shame? This has to end. It's absolutely, completely inhumane that these black people should be enslaved. And yet those same people were filtering out what was going on around them in their own lands and in their own communities. Specifically, for instance, with those individuals, those workers who were working down the coal mines in terrible conditions. Many of them were children. So it was like saying, oh, let's deal with the subject of the enslavement of black people, but we'll conveniently ignore the enslavement of our own people, of those boys, sometimes girls and men, who were labouring down coal mines and in factories, in the mills, and living lives which were in penury, in poverty. The news, in a way, is a distraction because it's edited, because it involves cutting out and including certain items at the expense of others. Then it's very selective, and it's so vast and all-encompassing that you couldn't really expect to have a handle on the news anyway. This place is called Shining Cliff Woods. So therefore, I completely understand it when people say, look, I don't care what the fuck's going on in the Middle East, it's nothing to do with me, I'm not interested. On the other hand, when your life has been shaped, influenced, controlled, and subject to all manner of taxations and limitations on your growth and your potential, your creative potential, your sweat equity, by a tiny cadre of Talmudicans, as Les Visible calls them, then you have to pay attention. It's incumbent upon you to know exactly how you're being shafted and by whom. And that way, and only then, can you do something about it. With that in mind, I wonder if a news roundup can be a good thing. But then again, it's subject to my biases and my editorialship. So you'll have to bear with me. Let me know what you think of it. I have opined on many a delightful occasion about the gross materiality with which and in which the elites, the would-be controllers, the dark overlords, are obsessed with. The god of materiality is Jehovah. It's the destructive god of the burning bush. It's the belief system that holds sway in the minds of the Talmudicants. Should that be Talmudicants or Talmudicunts? I'll let you decide. But it's that fake god that holds sway in their minds that persuades them that they are God's chosen people and that everything in the material world is theirs for their pleasure, for their enjoyment, for their control. And that includes the Goyim, those who are not of the Talmudic persuasion. The Goyim being the cattle. And isn't it interesting that in 1066, as every schoolboy knows or used to know, with the Norman invasion, there came a great ledgering, an account taking of exactly what had been plundered. And it was known as the Doomsday Book, in which each individual's property, right down to the number of children perhaps in the family, the number of chickens he had, the number of sheep he was raising or grazing, all of it was documented in this great ledger. Everything was divided up into what was known as the Doomsday Book. I mean, the clue's there. And who benefited from this? Well, it was the financiers that had financed William the Bastard's invasion of England. And so immediately from that time, you can see how everything is given a value, material value, when really we're not material beings. We are spiritual beings having these experiences in our avatars. But of course, when I express this, many of you will understand it. Those who don't understand it will either come to understand it when it's too late, or they will never understand it because they're too engrossed in the illusory world. And one of these individuals, and there are many, who is engrossed and in love with the materialism is Tony Blair. Tony Blair at one point was getting paid 11 million after he left Parliament. He was getting paid £11 million a year by, I think it was Uzbekistan. And then, of course, he was deployed as the Middle East peace envoy. And now he's returned to be at the forefront of the attempt to impose digital ID and digital currency on the people, which, as I've written about, is a recipe for complete and utter tyrannical control. I mean, personally, I'm of the view that it's a pipe dream and that it's not going to materialise because so many people will resist it. In the simplest of terms, they're not fucking having it. But isn't it interesting that his son and his daughter-in-law are both profiting from it? £394 million is the amount that's been handed over to Ewan Blair's firm. I've got a link in the article to this so you can dig into it. I'm only touching on it because I just wish to make the point about the gross materialism. This gross materialism goes hand in hand with the Talmud and the tenets of Zionism. For the gross materialist, therefore, enough is never enough. It's always give me, more, more, more. To quote a lyric from a Wonder Stuff song, as I recall. One for the older viewers there. In fact, I'm pretty confident we're all pretty much of the same age, or should I say the same vintage. And above and beyond all of this, of course, is the maxim, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. To express it positively. To express it as negative averment, it would simply be, do not do unto others that which you would not like done unto you. It's just a mirror effect. So whichever I prefer to go with the positive one, but I understand completely those who may the viewpoint of those who seek to make it a little bit firmer, shall we say. It's a very twisted mindset when someone believes that they are superior to other people and can commit all manner of acts that infringe upon the liberties of those other people. We're talking here, of course, about a complete and utter lack of empathy. This lack of empathy goes hand in hand with a lack of consciousness. So, you have the likes of Keir Starling, or Sir Keir Starling, to give him his full title, who is firmly of the view that he can do as he pleases, that there will be no consequences for him behaving like a cunt and riding roughshod over people's benefits, rights and privileges. And so this week, as he's clinging on to power by his fingertips, following, one scandal after another, this is what I mean about the apocalypse. Try as he might, he just can't keep it hidden. He just can't suppress it. He has decided, in his infinite foolishness, to appoint Harriet Harman, the former advocate of PI, the Paedophile Information Exchange, who, in her gross stupidity and gross materialism, advocates that children can have sex with grown-ups and it doesn't do them any harm at all. He's appointed her as minister responsible for women and girls, or something like that. And as if that weren't bad enough, he's also appointed Gordon Brown, the former Prime Minister, the one I'd get, as his financial advisor to the Labour government. This was the man who sold off the gold. It really is an absolute clown show, a shit parade of epic proportions. You wake up sometimes and you think, well, it can't surely get any worse. It can't get any more ridiculous. It can't get any more shallow. And yet sometimes you see that they've managed to squeeze another drop of water out of the infinite shallowness of the puddles of their foolish thinking and stupid behaviour. On the basis that I talked at great length, the conversation between Dom, Christian and myself last night went on for over 2 hours. I'm going to make this a short one. I found a little spot here, down the hill from Jackass Lane, near Ambergate. I'm going to wind it up here because sometimes less is more. In fact, most of the time, less is more. So, as ever, thank you very much for your kind attention. If you've appreciated this and you're feeling generous, please consider chucking a few quid into the Rogue coffers via the Buy Me a Coffee button. It is appreciated. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the newsletter at my website, roguemail.org. Should you wish to have first dibs on my essays and roguecasts, then you may well wish to consider taking out a paid subscription at Substack. I'm also to be found on Facebook and Twitter. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please like and share. Drop me a comment. I am appreciative of all those comments from last week's roguecast, in which I spoke briefly about the bullshit of Benicia, a series of 5 episodes that I have recorded about recent events. However, on reflection, I've decided that there is no rush for me to put that out as a series or in its entirety just yet. I'm keeping it under wraps, largely because, sometimes we just need to step away, draw a line under what's happened and walk away from it, leave it. And some people do get drawn into the drama. Some people are saying that they do wish to know exactly what had happened. But as I said last week, I'm not one for washing my dirty laundry in public. So I'm going to leave it for now and keep me powder dry, so to speak. Although, as a little tease, I do have to say, it's extraordinary stuff. The whole narrative. It's impossible for me to go into the minutiae of what transpired between Michael and myself and Michael and all the other members of FUCT, as we're now calling it, FUT. But, it is documented up here, as well as in an audio and video format right now. And at some point, it will be in writing. So just bear with me. There is no hurry. And thank you for your kind words and your support. And until the next time, my friends, we'll leave it for there today. And all that remains for me to say is, I'll catch you on the flip side. Cheers.